Welcome everybody to the big show. Now today, we're going to talk about how you can go from being a service advisor or technician to being a manager. What are the steps? What are the things that you need to understand to accomplish that? Now this might be the best advice, information that you've ever received in your life in that pursuit. So you're gonna wanna pay attention and take some notes. And then the other thing that we have going on that's kind of fun is we got the news. Christian's going to talk about what's going on in the news, and there's some little surprises in there. So that and much more coming up today on Service Drive Revolution. I'm excited about this show today, but I am exhausted. It was leg day.
Yeah.
And so for those of you that don't work out or don't understand what leg day is, it's when you do like leg exercises like squats and things like that. And for me, in the middle of that workout, I'm already craving fettuccine Alfredo. Like I'm never hungrier than on leg day. It's the worst.
And it's going to be the worst food that you're imagining yourself with. Like, oh, what I wouldn't do for fettuccine Alfredo right now.
Oh, it would be so good. I'm starving. I don't understand too, like we always record these on leg day. So it's like hard to sit still.
Yeah.
I wish I could stand up. I wish I had a podium.
That's why I do my workouts at night.
I should skip leg day. I think I'm too old for leg day. Do you ever feel that when you're lifting heavy?
Anytime. I remember when I was lifting with the boys about a year and a half ago, and I remember watching
in our prison.
In the old prison yard, which is gone. But the funny thing is that like the progression that the kids made, like these are guys like in their early 20s, mid 20s, and everything like that, and I'm in my mid 40s, and I remember like I would lift with everything that I had in me, and the next time if I lifted 5 pounds more, it was like. It was the end of everything, and then these young kids would hop in. Like one time they do 145, like then the very next time they'd be like 180, like benching, and like their ability to get
just
better.
Full of growth hormone.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I don't know, like how strong do your legs need to be? I guess.
Yeah, at this point, who cares? I need to save my knees. Is what I need to do.
Yeah. Oh, you feel it in the knees for sure.
Okay, let's talk about what's in the news today.
Could electric vehicles be the solution to surging gas prices? Spoiler alert, yes. So essentially what we found is that 25% on this recent survey, 25% of all Americans expressed interest in making their next car electric.
Yeah, that story's 2 days old. As of an hour ago, 99% of people that saw that gas is at $7. There's one guy that doesn't want an electric car, but he doesn't have a phone and he can't be reached.
Right. But he made your survey. That's all that matters.
My chick with her Tesla constantly is talking about how I don't go to the gas station, you know. Well, whenever she drives my car and she has to put gas in it, she's like, I forgot what that was like. I'm like, come on. Like, you forgot what it's like.
It'd be so fun to like go to the gas station and pull in and roll down your window next to a big truck that's putting $180 and be like, oh, that's right, I don't have to be here, and just pull out and leave.
We're gonna see $10 a gallon.
Yeah, I think it'll be unprecedented.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a shift of life for sure.
Yeah, just in 99% of people want an electric car.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Okay, you want to talk about the subject today? The big.
This is
topic?
Yeah. I think this topic is gonna hit home for a lot of people looking to get to that next level. Don't you think?
Yeah, so this was actually something that was asked, I think, on YouTube in the comments. How to get promoted from an advisor or tech to manager. Like if you're an advisor, you're a technician, What things can you do to get promoted where you are right now? Right? And, the time kind of comes where you're working hard, you've been around a while, and you decide like, hey, I think that I should be in charge, or I want, someday to be the manager. For me, that happened mostly just by being the recipient of all the bad decisions that the manager I worked for made.
That's good.
I'm like, I could do this better.
Right.
So whether it's just, time and you feel like, you eventually want to be in leadership, or you are working for somebody who couldn't lead their way out of a wet paper sack.
Yeah.
At some point, you're going to decide you want to be a manager.
Throwing the hat in the ring, if you will. Throwing the hat in the ring. Oh, you know what? There was another piece of news that I didn't tell you about earlier.
What's that?
So McDonald's has recently said they're not going to do services in Russia anymore. It's now considered a no-fry zone.
That's funny. Took you a while to tell the first joke.
Carry on.
How to get promoted from an advisor or tech to a manager. So, number one is you have to raise your hand and tell your owner, general manager, whatever, that you want to be promoted someday.
So what you're saying is that owners and general managers are not mind readers?
Yes, they're not psychic. I have yet to meet a dealer or general manager or service manager, for that fact, now that we think about it, that was psychic.
Yeah.
Anything but, most of the time they're reactive. If you think about people in our industry, they're not even good at being reactive. They're usually late to that. So to think that they're going to be anticipating something that hasn't happened yet is that's just wishful thinking.
That's good. Yeah, you got to let them know for sure.
Most of the time, the elephant has to be in the room, has to stand up and start knocking stuff over before people in our industry decide that they need to think about changing.
Oh, wait, I just thought that was a furry wall.
The later, the better. Like, wait as long as possible to change. So you got to raise your hand and tell them. Now, what sort of things, Christian, happen when you raise your hand and you say, hey, I think that I want to be a manager someday?
So I think the best possible thing that could come out of that is that when you raise your hand to your GM or your owner, is that they become your mentor. That's when you really start to get into, the general manager saying, well, okay, one of the things you have to understand is the statement. And then they take you in, they start to mentor you and explain how the business really works. I also believe, side note, is that even when you're an advisor or technician, I think understanding financials makes you a better advisor or technician too. Like, there's no downside to learning financials, but I love the idea of raising your hand and getting a mentor.
Now, I've had this happen two different ways, and you should be able to tell by the reaction when you express this where you sit. Because I've had, kids come and say, hey, someday I want to be a manager. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to start treating you like that, and I'm going to teach you some things, and I'm going to involve you in situations, and I will, make time to start explaining why things are happening and, give really, really specific feedback to them in the effort of mentoring them. But I've also had people come and say, hey, I want to be in management. And in my head, I'm going, God, no. Like, you are the last person, that we would ever want in leadership or management. So, depending on their reaction, it'll tell you how you're perceived.
That's a good point.
Because there are people that want to be in management that, aren't going to check a lot of these other boxes that we're going to talk about. Like, for example, number 2 that we have on the list is being positive, right? You're not going to get promoted if you're not perceived as somebody who's positive, who sees the opportunity instead of the problem. If you're always focused on the problem and the negativity, that is not somebody that you're going to want to promote into leadership. So understanding that to be a leader, to be in leadership, your perspective has to be about the opportunity and positivity. If you're focused on negativity, that's excluding yourself from the opportunity, right?
Yeah, so if you're the tech in the shop that's always complaining, well, the computers don't work, this isn't in the right spot, or this should be better, or parts does this, like hold.
Well, that's probably okay.
That's probably fair.
Yeah.
So
anything but that.
Yeah, if you're talking about that and not about ways to be more efficient in the shop, you might need to kind of change the way that you're controlling the narrative, because people are listening.
Nothing makes you lose your authority more than being negative.
Agreed.
Okay, the next one, number 3, is consistency. You gotta be consistent. So, for example, somebody comes to me and they say, Chris, I wanna be a manager someday, but they don't show up on time, or they're, let's say they're a technician and they have a lot of comebacks, they overlook things, their attitude is inconsistent, right? You don't know which one you're gonna get. Like they have split personalities.
Oh yeah, I've seen that before.
And so consistency in your work ethic, in the actual execution of the work that you're doing, the outcome of it, your attitude, your positivity. We have that saying, how we do anything is how we do everything. Consistency is a big part of moving up, because people want to follow somebody who's consistent. You don't want to follow somebody who's inconsistent, just because of the fact is it makes you feel insecure, because you never know what's going to happen or where you stand.
Yeah, you're not sure if you're going into a volcano or up the mountain, right?
Number 4 is that you're going to have to understand that it's the company and customers first, not you. You're going to have to make a transition and understand that being in management or leadership is a very selfless endeavor, in the sense that you got to put the company, you got to put the customer way ahead of yourself. And frankly, you got to put your employees ahead of you too, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so right along that, one of the things I see managers or newer managers struggle with the most is the thought that their employees sometimes make more money than they do. So the truth is sometimes hopping up the ladder into management is a little bit of a pay cut. So I think that you have to kind of completely change the way you flip. And it's such a 180, because as an advisor and as a tech, there's a little bit of selfishness. Like you got to fight. Like you got to fight for your ROs. You got to fight for your hours. There's a little bit of looking out for number one in both of those jobs. So we're asking you to completely reprogram. But just understand that that promotion might be a pay cut in the beginning. In the end, it always works out.
Yeah, it's common for somebody to get promoted to service manager, and then they realize that one of their advisors or one of their techs is actually making more money than them, and they hyper focus on that, and they don't focus on all of the things that they can control, how they can maximize their pay plan.
Right.
They're just focused on the fact that somebody's making more than them, and they assume that because you're the manager, you should automatically make the most money. But that just isn't how it works. You have an opportunity most of the time to earn more money, but you're certainly not going to achieve that by focusing on what others are getting paid.
That's right.
It can be a big stumbling block. And I think a lot of ego is involved in that.
Well, I think just in general, I think when you get promoted into a new job, ego couldn't be more of an enemy. Humility is the thing you want to take with you into that chair.
Yeah, one way or another, when you're coming up and when you get promoted to manager, you're going to eat some humble pie. It just is what it is. The next one is number 5. It's not fair. You're responsible for all man's sins. That if you're thinking that things are fair, that they're an even exchange, that there's work-life balance, that you're going to get praised all the time, that people are going to notice what you're doing, that you're going to get a thank you, that even that you're going to get a good job, like well done, It's not going to happen.
No,
It's a lonely, thankless thing, and it's not fair.
yeah, you're the quiet one in the back of the room off the camera, for sure.
Yeah, you're going to take the blame for all of the problems, and you're going to give away the credit for all the successes.
Yeah.
That's really how it works. And so it's not fair whatsoever. Number 6, you have to focus on the customer satisfaction and understand that from the position of a service manager, the dealership in the dealer world is judged on CSI. It's how the manufacturers look at you. And from a group, depending on how big the group is, a lot of times groups can't buy more dealerships until they fix their CSI. So CSI and the customer experience is a big part of the equation. Like, you have to be able to provide a consistent and above average customer experience, or you're not going to last.
Yeah, I would say that it's so interesting. I always think back to like the groups that we work with and our conversations with the leadership in those groups. And I would say that CSI sometimes is number one over profitability. Like, they're very close to each other, and especially those stores that are in high acquisition mode.
Yeah. But we see that a lot. We get brought in to help with that.
For
a
sure.
lot of times they're like, I looked at one last week where they were 40% net to gross, very profitable, but the CSI, very inconsistent, high performing dealership, but
huge store.
You're not going to, it's going to affect your relationship with the manufacturer in a negative way if you can't provide a consistent experience to the customers. Then number 7 here, that is kind of our last one in what we came up with, is if you want to get promoted, I would approach it this way, in the sense that I would imagine myself in that position, and then I would sit down with a piece of paper and I would write down, like, okay, if I'm a really successful manager here where I'm working, what is it that I would have to act like? What would my confidence have to be? What would I dress like? What would be, my overall attitude? What would I have to be good at? I would make a list of what you are as an idealized version of a successful manager or leader, and then create that now. Become that now. Like, start dressing like that now. Start acting like that now. Start, expecting very little praise and understand that it's not fair. Start, being an example, being the positive influence when everybody else is negative, seeing the brighter side in things. Like, reverse engineer what you should be today to get to where you want. So don't think from here forward. Jump ahead a couple years to when you're succeeding and you're kicking ass, and think about the characteristics, the mindset of who you are, and then adopt those now. Start now.
I think that the big thing with that is the dynamic of you and the group of employees has to change. I think it's way easier to do it. I think in hindsight, as I moved up, is that doing it earlier rather than later is easy, right? So you and I both know is when you get into leadership, like, the dynamic and the social dynamic outside changes. And I think as a person that's trying to get into that next level. So what I always think about is that, if the employees are all like a flock of sheep, and if you just are like everyone else, every one of the other sheep, how would you ever stand out? So you have to do something different. So I think about, like, so let's say everybody's getting together and going to the bar on Friday night after work, and they're gonna have a few beers and all that other stuff. And you kind of have to be the early out, because you're going to be to work early in the morning. Like, you have to kind of do that thing that stands out, almost to the point where your coworkers recognize it, that you're on kind of a different level. That'll help to elevate you when you become a leader, because they already know that you're kind of doing things differently than they are. And that stuff, those habits, I think, really, really start to magnify to the universe that you're ready for that leadership position. But how you act, how you look, so important.
Yeah. And I would say too, and this isn't about me when I say this, but I know it kind of could appear that way, is I really would read Irreplaceable Service Manager, the book. I mean, that's kind of how this question, I think, came about, was somebody reading the book and then emailing me. But that book is written to start you off on the right foot. Like the systems, the approach, all of it is in there. And I know people have said to me many times, like they read it 3 times. But it's a really easy read. It's, the information is very condensed and to the point. But read it 2 or 3 times and you'll be ahead of most managers out there. Because most managers out there have had very little training. They've learned through tribal knowledge, and they're just copying what they've seen other people do or what they've, heard from other people, but they really don't have a basic understanding of the business and how profit and a customer experience, a positive customer experience, is created.
That's right.
So that's where I'd start. Good stuff. Get good at selling tires and alignments because electric cars are coming.
They are on their way for sure.
Awesome. So we'll see you next time on Service Drive Revolution. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Service Drive Revolution. We're uploading new stuff every day, so make sure you subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss out. If you have a question you'd like us to answer on the show, call 8333-ASK-SDR and we'll answer your question on the show. That's 8333-ASK-SDR. For special deals on our books and training, head over to offers.chriscollinsinc.com. Now that's offers.chriscollinsinc.com. I'm Chris Collins, and I'll see you in the next video.